It seems people who buy electric cars are being conned. Many don't go anywhere near as far as claimed on a full charge. The British car magazine What Car decided to test the range that the car makers claim for their cars.
We've got 12 cars here and we're going to drive them all in real world conditions until they die.
Now what the magazine did was drive 12 kinds of electric cars in real world conditions. A bit of stop-starts, city type traffic, the longer stretches at 80 k's and 100 kilometres an hour, all in a bit of cool winter weather though, and they did it again and again until the car stopped.
Oh, I'm getting overtaken by everyone. I'm losing power. I'm dropping. I'm down to 59 miles an hour, 58, 55. I think this is going to be a really, really painful, slow death now.
Now, the result they found was that the real range of these cars in real conditions was as much as 40% of what the manufacturers claimed. 40% less. Not one car got within 20% of the official figures for the car range. The worst underperformer was a Lexus UX 300e Takumi. The next was another Lexus RZ 450e Takumi. The best was a Mercedes. Joining me is Paul Gover, former car racer and one of our most experienced motoring journalists, even inducted into the Supercars Media Hall of Fame, so he knows what he's talking about. Paul Gover, thanks for your time again. What do these tests tell you?
Well, they tell me what I already knew, Andrew. Very rarely do electric cars live up to their range claims. Now, there are lots of tests of combustion engines which will tell you they don't get the great fuel economy. Sometimes they're advertised. The thing with a combustion car is you can pull into a service station. Let me tell you, when you're driving an electric car, it's always in the back of your mind, where is the nearest life raft?
Look, you have actually been talking, and on this very show, about your doubts about the range. There is one thing I should point out. Those cars were tested in British conditions, a little cooler than Australian conditions generally. Would that make a difference to the range? Would you be more likely to get closer to the range that the car makers claim in Australia than you would in Britain? Because I think, isn't it, that the batteries are more efficient in slightly warmer conditions?
Yeah, that's true, Andrew. They are better in slightly warmer conditions. The thing about it is you also have to heat the battery if it gets very, very cold. Now, that's probably not the situation they were doing during this test. But the other thing about this is, in the real world, you actually get the best range at an electric car in stop-start traffic. If you go and drive on the highway or somewhere out in the countryside where you've got a constant drain on the battery, that's actually the worst conditions, which again is when you're most worried about how far you're going to go before the thing stops.
Now, if the range is less than advertised, and it clearly is, when you drive in real world conditions, doesn't this mean that electric cars are even less likely to cut emissions as advertised, because they then need even more charges of electricity to get to where they're going? And in Australia, that is still predominantly electricity made from coal and gas.
Yes, that is absolutely true, Andrew. And I'll tell you something else. One of my colleagues in the motoring press recently drove from Newcastle in New South Wales up to Brisbane. Now, that's a trip I can do comfortably in about 7.5 hours, stopping once to refuel, and even then in many combustion cars you don't have to. Took him over 12 hours. And the other thing that people don't tell you about is just the number of the recharging stations around the place that are inoperable or very slow. Everybody talks about wondrous recharging times with the very fast chargers that are around the place. But there aren't very many of them. And interestingly, I got him to drop into my place. There's a fast charger near me. It was great. We had an hour to chat because somebody had arrived 5 minutes before him, plugged their car in, and he had to wait for an hour while their vehicle charged.
Well, it's a good way to make friends, I guess, looking at the bright side. But I tell you what, the more often you have to charge, obviously, means also the electric cars are becoming more and more expensive to run. We've already seen a drive off between two Mercedes, Melbourne and Sydney. The Mercedes petrol version came out cheaper to run for that trip than did the electric one. Now, Paul, the Prime Minister today was spruiking the delivery of 43 electric trucks, most of them Volvo EFL electric trucks, at Team Global Express. Here he is.
This is a game changer. 1/3 of the heavy vehicles operating out of this very big facility in Western Sydney will be all electric.
Now, the Prime Minister was saying these electric trucks were a game changer. Here they were right behind him. These trucks in Britain actually cost twice as much as a comparable diesel one. And the ones the Prime Minister was promoting today were only bought with the help of a $20 million assistance from the Australian Renewable Energy Agencies. I mean, given all that, how much of a game changer can these trucks really be?
Zero. Apart from anything else, he's talking about, I did a bit of research, they're talking about 60 trucks. And they're not heavy trucks, despite what Prime Minister might have said. When we talk about heavy trucks, you and I are thinking about B-doubles out on the highway or articulated trucks. These are vehicles that are going to do short-haul deliveries around cities. The other thing is, 48, I think they're delivering, and the total is going to be 60 trucks. 60 electric trucks. Well, there are over 150,000 trucks on Australian roads at the moment. I'm not very good at maths, Andrew. Perhaps you get our old mate, Mr. McCran, to work it out.
Okay.
But 60 trucks against 150,000, what game is he playing that he thinks this is going to change it?
And is everyone buying a truck going to get a good, nice little financial assistance from the Albanese government? I don't think so. Paul Gover, thank you so much indeed for your time. Really appreciate it.